framework because they talk about the urban design. The most important is the urban design framework, which already has been created by Roger, which we need to stitch together and we need to probably evolve it and take it further. There are frameworks for water. There are quite a lot of things which we need to understand and work. And the proposals are the ones which works on infrastructure as a proposal. Proposed land use maps, proposed infrastructure lines. So all these things are proposals, and the strategies. Strategies are like something like how do we regularize something which has been built without an NOC or something like that. What is the strategy to incorporate them? What is the strategy to ensure that we work on achieve certain mobility? So these are the things which will be worked out. And then environment and safety. Environment is not only ecology. We have to ensure that we define our pollution norms, where we have to move as a town collectively. We have to define the safety of the town. How do we move forward, especially when it comes to elderly people, physically disabled, safety for the children. And then we have complaints to government policies and formulation of policies. See, there are already certain policies and laws in the state government, in the central government, which we have to be compliant with. But at the same time, we also have to, we need to formulate certain policies, like how do you allocate housing, in a certain way. How do you build? How do you do? How do you use the water? There are quite a lot of policies which also needs to be tackled, because giving maps alone is not going to solve our problem. It has to be addressed along with the policies which we are creating. And then, of course, the development rules, the building bylaws, FARs, the architectural guidelines, the urban design guidelines, all these things will be there. Then we'll be talking about resource mobilization. Now, these are all the technical part of it. Then we go about how this could be implemented and in what phases it could be implemented. One of the questions which was asked by 2-3 members to Helmut was if the construction happens, how is it going to happen? I don't foresee everything will start haphazard construction here, there and everywhere. I think there will be a phasing plan where we have to ensure that that it happens in a certain phased way, that all these things are mitigated, and at the same time life can go on in the town. It can't be everywhere at the same place. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have much of colorful slides like what Helmut had. I think you have to bear with me for a few more slides. So the roadmap. Now what we are trying to do is the first stage, there's an inception report which is being under preparation, because it's not that TDC is preparing. We are looking at Vastu Shilpa consultants as the lead consultant in helping in preparing the DDP. And apart from that, we'll also be collaborating with other consultants. There's a mobility and an infrastructure planner from Bombay. We are in touch with them. Anupama, she is now part of the technical team of TDC. We are in touch with Andrea Camarata. We are reaching out to all the consultants who have been part of TDC in the past. Jacqueline, Omar has been great advisor to us. So there have been quite a lot of people who have been helping us and supporting us in moving forward. So this inception report will help us to define the roles, responsibilities, and to see how as a team we could move forward. Then we have the data collection and analysis. Then the urban form parameters. Urban form parameters as defined by Roger, which, as I mentioned, there have been quite a lot of sketches and other things, and appropriate planning standards. So this is the first stage which we have worked on. Now the second thing is, we will be working on identifying proposals. See, the uniqueness about Auroville compared to other towns, which most of you would be knowing, but just like I said before, I want to address the larger audience in the community, is we have a certain form, and we have a certain way of how the form is grounded. So we need to understand that, and we need to move from that. Unlike in Pondicherry or somewhere else, where an urban sprawl and the urban sprawl is tried to be contained. Now here we are actually not starting from an urban sprawl, we are starting from an urban form with a clear definition, with zones, with usage for zones, and many other things. So what we would be looking at is to identify the pockets and the densities based on the urban form. So we need to first identify how do we get the population spread out across the densities. Now this would help us to formulate the infrastructure capacities, the mobility capacities, all these things would be formulated based on that. The next is we will be coming up with an urban design guideline which will help us to formulate the mobility pattern, because now we have the densities, at least we have made simulation of the forms, we come up with analysis, and then we have a certain urban design guidelines, and then which will also help us to understand how the mobility could work on a very preliminary level, and the most important is the surface water flow, how the surface water flows. And this, based on this, we'll be coming up with a preliminary proposal for sectors. Now, these are very preliminary level, conceptual level things, which would be now taken up with infrastructure planning. Because based on this, infrastructure plans would be formulated on a preliminary level. This would eventually help us to come up with guidelines, final infrastructure plan, layouts, demarcations, phasing plan, implementation plan, and finally a submission of a draft TD. Now this is the roadmap which we are looking at. I might also be a little bit wrong. I think Mr. Rajiv is the best person. Probably it might also go for a change. We might shuffle it here and there. But more or less this is the extent to which what we are looking as a part of DDP. So this eventually means we would start with understanding and respecting the realities. We also respect the urban form, and how do we ground that urban form to the reality on the ground. And I'm extremely happy that dream weaving session is an attempt to move in that direction, where we understand the form and we see how we could actually match it to the reality. And not only, like I said, not only are we going to decode the form, but we are also going to work out the details of how the urban fabric can be built and how it could be phased, how it could be implemented. So ideally, we feel if it's done, I think my contribution to Auroville is done. I think I can retire and go back and live in Ooty or something like that. So what are the layers in DDP which we are trying to attempt? Why this is important? Because every town has a certain unique ways, and there are certain unique layers which needs to be addressed. Like if it's a historical town, heritage and culture will be an important layer. If it's a hill town, obviously you have forest and ecology will be an important layer. So we have actually identified 6 layers. Town planning, because it also talks about the laws, the planning standards, and all these things has to be confirmed. Urban design, because we have Roger's concept, this needs to be understood, and we need to ground that. GIS, because of the Amrit guidelines, so that we match it and we do it in a certain standard which is compatible to the government. Infrastructure, environment, and mobility. So these are the 6 predominant layers which are being addressed. So this is where actually we are also looking at the consultants to start to work from. Now this is the theoretical part, and right now if you want to know, we have already completed the data analysis stage. There's a land use which needs to be prepared, that has been completed. So we are at the stage where we could actually take the urban form forward. So that is where we are. And we would also like that. I think still Vastu Shilpa consultant has to vet it, and probably they might come back and say, look, we need more data, more details. I don't know, for mobility we need to do an outer cordon survey. We are open to it, but these things will be pursued in a very speedy manner in the coming months. Now Auroville city area, as you all know, this is what actually from the GIS database which we have, this is what it comes to. Now we also archived quite a lot of studies. This is just an example. We archived around 10 pages of studies. That is what we found out. There's a huge amount of studies. Maybe some might be relevant, some might not be relevant. So it took us quite a lot of time in the last 3 months to really archive, go through this, clean it up. And many of these things, data which has been there, we had to convert it into a GIS database, which could be usable on a planning level. Now this is the proposed land use which is actually present in the master plan. I'm just giving an example of what are the other things which I have collected. Now for residential zone, if you see, we took what Mother has mentioned about what residential zone. We took what has been written about residential zone by your Mother. And we also looked at the master plan as to what it talks about. So we have just roughly put it up so that the consultants could actually understand how different is this residential zone when you talk about a residential zone in an outside world. Now this is very important, because it's important that we need to define where we are, who we are, to the outside consultants. And these are the important, I would say, like, the pearls, I would say, from the master plan, where it talks about the FAR, it talks about the ground coverage, it talks about a living space per person, it talks about 30 square meter, it talks about 50% unpaved area. All these things are all planning policies which has been defined in the master plan. And we also started archiving and finding out the sketches of Roger. Like if you see, this is one of the line of force. So many people have this misconception that line of force is one humongous, huge box. But actually it's not. When you look into his sketches, you will be able to understand, like, he has quite a lot played with climate, he has quite a lot played with the experience of it. So these are also very valuable for us when we are able to present it to the consultants and we are working in understanding the urban form. These are some of the other line of forces. So you could see each of the line of forces are completely different. They are not like exactly the same. Yes, so I come to the city center part of it because I think the crown we are mostly talking about it. I just want to present what are the data which we have collected in regard to that. So we all know that the city center is actually like the one which is inside the crown, and it's interesting because like all the zones kind of merges in the city center, and it's a microsome of what Auroville could actually stand for. You have the schools, you also have the residential, you also have the industrial facilities, so, and you also have the social fabric, so everything built in for us to start evolving. I find it very fascinating that there is somewhere a zone where everything like overlaps, mingles, and like in a very harmonious way. Now what you see here is what is it the city center develops. The aims of the city center is, these are things which we found from the past, archival data and everything, which we have kind of compiled. So to manifest the urban tissue density and the architectural quality, like I said, this somewhere merges everything, brings everything together. And this would set the flavor for us to how to grow on a much larger scale. Urban management, financial sustainability, infrastructure, parks and gardens, mobility, you name what is required in a town, everything has to be addressed when you are talking about in a city center. I mean, this you can't probably say when you are talking about any other zones. But in this part, all these things come together, and if you are able to work on creating a good city center, I think creating the rest of the town should not be much of a problem. Now this was one study which was made by Anupama under Roger's guidance. Now what was interesting also for me is there's quite a lot of cycle paths, I don't know, it's not so clear, which keeps meandering. I could see they had worked out even a toy train over here because these are all kindergartens. And the existing buildings have also been integrated into it. That was, like you see, this is the existing solar kitchen, the footprint of the solar kitchen if you could recognize. And this is this Porombo clan which actually goes through. So this is a study which we also had to go through. And the drainage and watershed, unfortunately there are certain things like we didn't, the data were lost. So we had to get the data, we had to rework on certain things. And this was one. And then that hydrology, I think geomatics team has been mapping it, identifying it, so we took those data from there. The geology was already there from water harvest, which we had to convert into GIS. This is the soil infiltration. These are the existing land ownership, existing buildings and communities which we have mapped, the roads, Porombo clans and everything. Pathways, all the pathways which we have mapped. Land use, this is land use which we need to take it with the state government for getting a certain legal validity. Now this is something which we anyway have to prepare. Now if you see in this is being prepared as per the Amrit classification. And then this is a sub-classification of Amrit which we had created. These are all the Amrit classification and sub-classification. And then water supply lines have been documented, sewage lines have been documented, existing electricity has been documented, telecom, galaxy footprints and overlays. So interestingly, like everybody must have known by this time, So in the industrial zone, you see all these line of forces actually fly over the ground. And similarly, if you see in the residential zone, this line of goodwill and then this small line of force are actually like in the city center. So we also talk about the line of forces, we also talk about high density, we also talk about our economic values and system if we really have to look into it. If you're talking about a line of force which is like really high over here, are we talking about making candles sitting in that line of force, or what are the industries which are going to come there? Agarbattis? No, I don't think so. Maybe something else would be there. So it's very interesting questions which are actually there, which needs to be discovered. For me, the galaxy is not about the answer, because the answer is there. I think what we have to seek is more and more questions. The minute we seek more and more questions, then I think we have really understood it. So yes, so this is my, I hope it's quite fast. Yes, so just to conclude, like I said, there are certain things which we are trying to match to the norms of the government. There are certain things we have to work, understanding the realities of the ground, the geographical realities. And at the same time, we also have to be faithful to the vision, and we have to respect the master plan. Now, within this broad framework, we are trying to work, and I think this gives us immense amount of flexibility and immense amount of scope, and something to do something of world class. And what I have seen personally is you need to have a very high quality of output to really bring these things out. I don't think so. A galaxy expects a certain amount of mediocrity. It requires a certain amount of faithfulness in interpreting it. And I hope all of us, we will be able to do it. And I also take this opportunity to invite you all to also become a part of the technical team of TDC. Because right now, I think the planning team, we are quite moving ahead. We already have 3 urban planners who are working in TDC. We are having quite a lot of well-respected consultants who will be collaborating. Pretty soon we'll be signing the agreement with Vastu Shilpa consultants to be our lead external consultant in preparing the DDP. So, and of course mobility. So I think there's quite a lot of learning opportunity also there. This is something which I've always respected and I've always cherished being part of TDC. And I want to also extend that part of TDC to all of you. And you're all most welcome to be part of the technical team, so that we could actually start moving in getting the DDP done. And in terms of timeline, we have a very, very, very short timeline to get things done. So it's always better when we all move together and we start working and start putting our energies in a certain way. I'm sure many of the discussions which we are having today might not be even relevant in the future once we start progressing on a knowledge-based discussion. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Srivatsa. So opening up questions from the DreamWeaving architects and also Vastu Shilpa Foundation. So, any questions?
Okay, where do I start?
Well, if no architects put their hand up, Julia has a question. Oh, she did, I didn't see. Sorry, you were hiding, couldn't see.
Okay, so my question is regarding the data analysis. Like I understood the data analysis part is more or less being done, and if I understand correctly, we are here meeting for a certain reason, because a lot of us would be working on the dream weaving process. So it's just for my understanding and clarification. Would the result of the dream weaving also be a part of the data analysis, or will it be a part of something like an input to the design itself, or where would it fall? And another question that I have is, if I see the steps that you had shown, the data analysis is one, and then eventually after several steps it comes to the phasing and the implementation. So that's another thing, you mentioned about the timelines. If you could know a little bit more about those timelines and a little bit more about the implementation and phasing, so that would also help us know while doing the dream weaving itself, that are there some areas which are to be prioritized? Is it really the thing that crown is what is to be prioritized right now, or is it is it just something that we have to take it as given, or can we rethink about that? So yeah, I mean, just about the little bit about the timelines and the priorities or the phasing that is there.
See, data analysis. Hello? Yeah. So, see, the data analysis part, whatever data we could collect, we have presented. And I'm sure there will be quite a lot of other data analysis which needs to be done, maybe land suitability analysis, quite a lot of other analysis which needs to be done. Now, this would be done in collaboration with the consultants, so the consultants might come up with it and it will be taken up. Now, the second thing is like, when you want to know about the implementation, where the output of the dream weaving will happen. See, it's very interesting for me because last time when we had invited Omar, David, and we connected with Mr. Raju, and where there was a presentation they made about dream weaving, it was good, but then they said, look, there are certain things probably you are missing. There are certain standards. There's some more layers which needs to be added. So, which means like, there are quite a lot of other layers which would be needed to be incorporated, and definitely this would form the base, I mean, a kind of the layer on which the other layers also has to be overlapped, and probably like, has to be merged, maybe tweaked or whatever. So this is for the consultants to see like, how we could evolve it. Now the third is the phasing. What we are talking about is the phasing. See, a DDP is for 5 years, and obviously when you do a phasing, you do it for a 5-year period. The uniqueness about Auroville is not only a township, but you can also see it as a project, because like, all the land is under one, the property is under one ownership, the foundation, and we have a very strong structure. So you could also see it as a project. So ideally, a DDP would be created for a 5-year phasing implementation, and it will be spread out obviously based on that, or it might also come because, like I said, the economy and governance is something which is not under the purview of TDC or DDP or whatever it is. And unless that part of it is not strengthened, there's no point in like, only doing the implementation. But we, as creating the DDP, we have to split it up based on that 5-year thing, and it will be proposed accordingly. Now, how it is getting implemented, now, that is something as a community we have to see. So, not clear? For the phasing?
I mean, slightly about the phasing and also about like, since right now, if I understand, our dream weaving is really focused on the crown, so that's how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not questioning
Yes,
the process.
about the crown.
So, I mean, is it because the crown has been come up with like as a priority to some implementation thing, or is it like just a given that we...
No, if you see in one of this presentation, like I showed you, see the crown and the inner part of the crown holds the crux of the weave. All the zones merges there. All the layers are there. Now, if we are able to do the city center part of it right now, I mean as a priority, and then we go to the next stages of implementation. As simple as like, you don't want like, the construction vehicles to keep disturbing this every time. Like, if this is completed, you go from inside to outside, right? That will be the most logical way, whether it's in terms of the execution. Or also if you look into the galaxy, all these zones merge here. So you are actually using it as a pilot project to understand all the zones, understand the economic life, understand the social life. So everything we are actually touching on it. So that is why like, we are taking the crown as the key, I would say the key element to really to manifest all of it. And implement, like the phasing is for the whole of Auroville. The DDP is prepared for the whole master plan area, and the phasing and the implementation schedule would be done for the whole of the master plan area. So probably the first phase of the phasing might come with crown. I don't know, maybe the city center 3/4 might be there. I don't know, this is something we have to see. But the phasing would talk about what should be implemented, the first phase, second phase, third, fourth, fifth, or it could be 10 phases, I don't know. But it will talk about phasing, and it will also talk about how it could be implemented. So it will give you guidelines as to how things could be implemented. There are certain things which could be taken up with the housing service. What are the organizations? Do we need to go out? How do we raise funds? All these things would be touched on. Is it clear or still?
Yeah, it's clear to the question. Another question, but I'll get chance to address first.
So I have a few questions. The first question would be those sketches of Roger Auger. Could those be shared with the dream-weaving architects? Because I think it would maybe give some insight into what, because they've been kept quite secretive, I think, until now. So that would be one request. The other question I have is, there's always talk about FARs, and as we don't have plots in Auroville, the land is all one, how does one actually define an FAR? Is then the land segmented into little plots to define those FARs, or how is that going to be? I don't know if this is the place to answer that question, but it's something I've been trying to figure out, and it's a very vague kind of, I don't think the FAR is maybe the best way to define whatever, the built-up area, but okay, apart from that. Another thing is land ownership map. I think for everything we are doing, it's something that also needs to be shared, because it does give a clear indication as to where we are at with Auroville and what is possible and how we can move forward. Because when we see the current speed of development in the Greenbelt and in the city area, but predominantly in the Greenbelt, it's scary. And it very clearly indicates that the Greenbelt is very quickly getting lost to developers all around. So that limits the actual Greenbelt which we will have available to us. So I think we have to take that very seriously and perhaps plan for more Greenbelt-like areas inside the city as well. Yeah, that was basically it.
So I think the Roger's questions, I think what we have, I'm sure like anyway Jacqueline is going to present the archives of Roger or something like that on Crown. So that will also give you a good idea. And this anyway, I think it's printed and it's displayed in the town hall in one of our displays. So there's nothing to hide about it.
I mean,
Yes.
like all these, like I'm talking
We could
about
share it. There's
shaping.
nothing like now. In fact, we would be happy to even display it as a museum archives, like to show to the world, like these are the sketches of Roger. So no, I don't think so. There's anything to hide about it. And second thing, it's a good question about FAR.
Just I want to answer to this, because we already made a big exhibition of all the archives of projects 2 years ago in Town Hall for months. Then you could have seen all the sketches.
But I'm talking about, like, you go to an exhibition, you see something, it's different than actually buying the painting and having it in your house. Then you can refer to it later. Otherwise, you have to go there and take pictures of the exhibition, it's a bit weird. So I'm talking about sharing, as in sharing that we can all get inspired or not by it. That's
Sure. Yeah.
Fully available to anybody.
Then share it and
Yeah, it will be shared. So TDC is already moving in the direction, so there's nothing to worry about. Second is about the FAR. See, that's a very good question. Like I said, like we are also a town, and at the same time we are also a project. Right? Now, if we are a town, obviously we would be having a clear demarcation of the site plots and other things, where FARs and FSIs will be there. But since we are also a project where all the land comes under one ownership, this was some question which we also had with the town and country planning organization when we met there. So my assumption is that based on the footprints of the galaxy, I might be wrong, but this is purely my understanding, that is what we would be considering it as plot, and based on that, like the guidelines would be given. So let's say you have a line of goodwill, or so you actually define a little bit in and around the footprint as to what the impact of it will be happening. That could eventually become the plot, and you have an FSI defined for it. This could be one possible solution. This is something which needs to be worked out. And the third is about the green belt. Yes, I think I'm happy you brought this out, because when you talk about why this hurry in building, I mean last 2 years before, when you see, I completely sympathize and agree with you, because from Kuilapalayam to Certitude there is no development. Right now you see the development has come all the way till Certitude, and probably another 2 years maybe till Solar Kitchen, right? Maybe another 2 years I beg probably till Matramandira. So I think now we really have to move forward to tell the world, look, this is Auroville. We are actually working on it, and we need all your support.
we have to acquire the land.
Yes, that's also being pursued. Now if you see, one of the things which I had mentioned in the DDP also talks about acquisition of the land, because it gives us more credibility. Like if you go and say, like, I need a land, why do you want it? Because Auroville wants it. That can't be a legal answer to a state government. Now when we say, look, this is a social experiment and we are talking about, let's say, a crown over here, which has the potential to help humanity to move forward, and therefore we are acquiring this land, then I think we have a much better case to do. And how do we tell that? Like, DDP and the master plans are the only way to tell, like, because it's sitting over here, we need it, right? So I think that land acquisition is already, we have been pursuing it, it's happening, and this will add more weight and more strength to that. And the faster and the better we are able to do it, we'll be able to reach there with a much stronger force. And
But the DDP doesn't cover the green belt, right?
yes, it has to also cover the green belt.
Because the green belt is where all the land is going.
Yes, the green belt.
Yeah, I mean, in the city area, most of the land has been acquired.
See, the green belt, if you see, is a little bit more complex, because if you look into the whole of Auroville Plateau has a ridge, right, which runs from northeast to southwest. Now, traditionally, the ones on the western part has had farming lands. That's why you have all the villages, with that Sidenchavdi, Kotakarai, Alangupam, Rayaputupakam, because and then you have all these lakes and everything. Now we have marked them under a green belt, but they are actually growing much faster than us, right? And maybe in 2 years, the whole of things would be urbanized. We can call it as green belt, but I don't know, like, how do we tell the people that that is a green belt? But we have much better chance when we are looking into the eastern side, right? When you start from Amiabri, from certitude till all the way till revelation, probably we have a much faster.
Yeah, so then we have to make sure that if we can't acquire the western side, we have to make sure that we protect the eastern side. Sorry.
Yes, so like I said,
I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is like all the land which is being acquired and which is already part of the villages, which we will never be able to acquire, we have to compensate for that by protecting what we have and acquiring what we can, and maybe moving, like rethinking certain green areas.
see, if you look into the DDPs of the city area has a certain clear-cut directions. Now, what I presented to you was more or less towards the city area. Now, if you see the DDP for the green belt, will more or less conform to how DDPs are created in the outside world, because there is no special, I mean, we speak of it as a green belt, but in terms of urbanization, we are not so, we are not looking at urbanizing the green belt area, right? So it has to be prepared in a certain, completely a different way and has to be addressed, where we also have to integrate the aspirations of the villagers who have been there for generations, for thousands of years. There's this temple, Irumbai temple, which has been there for thousands of years. So, there's quite a lot of fabric which is over there. So we need to create it in such a way. And like I said, the city area is a project, but the green belt, I don't know how we could call it as a project if we have to integrate Irumbai temple and Alangupam. So there we really have to take it up with the different governments, and green belt also we need to deal with two governments. There's the government of Pondicherry and then there's the government of Tamil Nadu. So when you do a DDP, you do a DDP in the green belt separately for the government of Tamil Nadu. For the Pondicherry, if you see, already the government of Pondicherry is already working on a development plan for Alangupam. They have already published draft plans. So the best case for us is to integrate that. I doubt whether we can go erase it and re-rate it. I think that might not be possible.
Yeah, that half answers my question.
Okay.
We have about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes left, and we have quite a lot of questions coming. What I understood from the beginning is that architects taking part in the dream weaving will get priority on the questions. So on that basis, just so everybody knows, in the next 15 to 20 minutes we've got Induja, Fabian, Omar, Manu, Ganesh, Neha, and if there are no more architects and we get through that, then there would be Julio, Mark and Tuan. So, right, so just, I doubt that everybody's going to get to answer, and that's why these pieces of paper are there, so you can write your questions down, and so if we run out of time, the questions will be answered later online. So, next would be Induja and then Fabian. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna get my glasses at some point and I'm gonna see people, I swear.
Hi, I have two questions. One I can still try to eliminate because it's about the larger thing, but the other one, which is directly related to crown and the dream weaving, would be, especially in the north western part of it, we have two canyons, and we have the lines of forces crossing across the ground. And there is a critical situation of having a Ode Perambok, a line of force which is quite contrasting to that, and we have a crown, which is a pedestrian based movement. So in that case, will we have no, the same map that was there?
This is the Ode Perambok.
Yeah. So in this area, will we have guidelines which we can already take into account, because we would like to know what TDC is thinking of the larger aspect, because there are some water catchments there. Will there be a planning done taking into consideration the water and the aspects on the ground, or should we just go thinking there is nothing over there, so that
Erase everything and start from white paper.
no, yeah, because it is for architects, like at least for me, who's very new into all these things, it's a bit of a critical place to think about very contrasting elements and try to bring a solution at that level. So I would like to have, if already TDC has thought of some guidelines that can feed to us, to our process, we would really appreciate that. That would ease our thing, and that is one thing. And the second one is, I saw the land use, existing land use according to the Amrut categories that was presented. But as I understood when I was working there, it was done, the existing land use was done, and then the following step was to prepare a proposed land use, because we have a different, very special zoning of different 4 different zones. So according to that, and stitching it to the ground reality, because for example we have Kotakarai and we have galaxy footprint even over there, which I suppose may not be possible to build, but we can, and then the idea was, if we have that and get it through government, the proposed land use, and then we will have the guidelines of buildings over there, even in those areas. That was somehow my understanding. So will it mean there will be a proposed land use pursued by TDC and taken to the government, and along with the guidelines for each plot for development and everything, and we come back and we start developing according to that? Or if we say we can't actually consider the Kotakarai area into our city because it is developing in its own way, and the galaxy footprint that is over there also accounts to the amount of development in the city. So are we going to have a compensation plan or something like that for those kind of critical areas in other places also? And we have some Perambok roads which is giving access to other private lands within the area. So we are also not able to think about the timeline when we can maybe consolidate the whole of city area, and eventually the road Perambok can be, given to Auroville, if that is possible in government, whatever legal things, because there will be no other private lands which need the ease of access, easement that can use this road and all. So that is still a larger question. I don't want. So the second question need not be answered now also, because it's not relevant. But the first question I would like to.
Yes, the first thing is regarding water. See, obviously water is a very fundamental area. If you ask me personally, for me the water lines is what actually creates the green lines over here, because we are a rain-fed region. Like how the water flows is something which is very important for us to sustain our town. So water lines will be respected, has to be respected, there's no doubt about it. Now how we find a technological solution to overcome it is the key challenge for us. Technological solution, policy solutions, whatever it is. And second, in terms of policies, we do not have any policies right now. And I believe the dream weaving is all about decoding the whole form of the galaxy and trying to see how it can land beautifully in the ground reality, right? So I don't want to give too much of constraints to make sure all these things are become distorted. Third is regarding the land use. See, the land use, when you were there, we started working on the land use, but unfortunately we had to rework quite a lot of it. So what you're seeing is an updated one, which was prepared with the help of planning students from IIT Kharagpur. And we had to take this with the town and country planning organization in Delhi, where they also checked it. I think also Vastu Shilpa, they had an expert who actually also helped us in refining certain things. So this is an existing land use, but the proposed land use will be prepared at a later stage. See, until we know where the line of force exactly sits, what all these things, and then based on that only we could create a proposed land use. So the proposed land use doesn't come hand in hand with the existing land use. There's a certain analysis based on that, you come up with a proposed land use. Now, and then if you're looking at compensation, see, if you in the city area, except the Bharatipuram area, the good thing is the rest of all the city area, there's no habitation or settlement. So that's the positive thing. Now, how we address the Bharatipuram area, which is, sorry? No, these are private lands, but I'm talking about human habitation and settlements. Right?
Like
So what you have is only in this area, where the Porombokia, I think, here. So this is the only area where we actually have human habitation and settlements, which has happened the last 10-15 years, unfortunately. But the rest of these things, we might have private lands, but we don't have, village settlements and other things. So again, like I said, when we do this farm simulation, and then we understand, when we look into the realities, how we match it. Maybe we might have to compensate certain things which are losing there to some other place, or we come with a phasing plan where we see, whether these could be acquired. I don't know. These are things which needs to be explored. But ideally, the first thing would be is to see whether we could achieve completely over here as a part of the galaxy. Now, if it doesn't happen, then probably we need to shift things. But how do we address it? By giving recommendations and policies. Probably we can update the foundation to say, look, these are the things, and if this could be helped in certain way, I think we would be able to get back the land, whatever. And if we have lost all the options, then probably we have to look at, seeing how we, updated, migrated, adjusted or something. That has to be done. And the timeline which you are looking at. So timeline, I was not clear. Timeline for?
No, I was thinking what to be taken into account, because land compensation will have a longer timeline. So right now we are in a different days. So how do we incorporate those kind of scenarios?
See, like I said, let's keep. I think the vision is to understand and decode the urban form. Right? Water is something which is very, it has to be there. So there are certain elements like percolation, it's there, geology is there. These are things that we can't change the whole geology. But these kind of things, maybe if you have anything specific, we can go look back and come specifically and try to see what could be addressed. But my suggestion right now would be is to consider that land is available. And if you could work on it, that will be helpful. And personally for me, I think this whole thing is about certain movement and positivity. So let's keep that momentum up rather than getting blocked into all these difficulties.
Okay, we have under 10 minutes, so if the next people could keep their questions shorter and responses shorter, that'd be great.
I'll try.
Coming on again, sorry.
Okay, I tried to make it really short. So there was one observation when you talked about the aspects of a DDP, especially for Auroville. I was missing as key aspects the dream and the charter. I think they are really important and are for me the main raison d'etre for Auroville. So maybe they can be kind of integrated in whatever step we are doing. And then it was about the DDP being prepared by a qualified planning authority. And as I said, I don't expect answers right now. It's probably too short, and maybe this one is also a bit provocative. Is the question I think many people in the community are asking if the present TDC is actually a qualified planning authority. There has been a lot of people coming, going. You are the only architect in the whole community-appointed team. There was one question, how do you stand with that? Coming directly to who is the client body of the present TDC? What is your relationship to the RA? You have published some statements which are giving the impression that you actually are not really feeling that you are bound by the RA. And yeah, I think, and when we are, as you many times mentioned, in in a proposal or exploration phase for all of that, and this will be presented and it needs approval. So why are we actually right now creating conditions on the ground when we are actually not really knowing where we are going, what we are doing? Thanks.
Okay, so the first is obviously yes, the charter, it goes without saying, like, I think definitely the charter and all these things are the key essential, nothing starts from there. So I fully agree with you, there's nothing for me to go about it. And the second thing is, and the second was like, about, see, I think we are in a very critical time. I'm talking in terms of the development which is happening around this. And I'm sure you'll also agree with it, right? And how do we go and present ourselves to the outside world? We need to have certain legal value. And the Act and other things gives us the legal value. That is the only thing. We stand on the Auroville Foundation Act. The Act has a certain definition of what the governing board is. And the best way at this point for us to really take to the outside world when we are doing the DDP, when we are working with all these things, is to ensure that we are legally compliant to go and meet with the other departments on the other side of the wall, right? And the best way it could be done is it has to be officially authenticated as per the Act. And the Act mentions about a governing board, and the governing board has issued us the office order, which is based on a standing order. Now what it empowers us is, it empowers us to go and talk to, whether it's TCPO or whether it's like, we want to do all these things. That is the only way we can actually make it. By doing that, I personally believe we are actually helping Auroville to actually move in the right direction. But this is the actually, like, if you see this is the only possible solution we can do. And I see all these things are here to help us. I don't see any contradiction in that. And when we are looking at doing planning is a legal subject. It can't be done without having certain legal value. So that's why, like, I think we have to respect the standing order. We have to work as per the standing order. So I think that is about the thing. And second is, where do I stand in terms of the validity of the present TDC or whatever it is. See, for me, it is all about being bold and getting things done. Now, I also want to be like all of you. I would like to go and have a good sleep and would like to spend good time with my wife and have a happy
Don't
thing.
talk on our behalf, please. Don't talk on our behalf.
No.
You talk about yourself, please. Thank you.
No, Mark, I think sometimes
we also have
should
nightmares. We also have nightmares, like you.
No, but nightmares probably, but
Please.
like 2.5 years,
Please.
it's not like to take all these
Talk on
things
your
when there's been no funding and everything. It's not something like nobody expects that to do. But why should somebody do it? Because I see this is the easiest way to move forward. Like, it will help us to collectively move forward. Somewhere we need to legally ground ourselves. We need to identify what we are. And like I said, that what you see, the development which happened from Kuilapalli to Certitude is a wake-up call for everybody. It's not like, and we can talk about what we are, how we are for another 50 years. But will the outside world wait for us? I don't think so. The outside world is going to wait for us. They're going to keep moving in, encroaching on us, or working for whatever it is. And my biggest fear is, at the end of the day, we'll be like, I don't know, refugees in our own land, something like that. So I feel like, this is something which is very time bound. It has to be done. These discussions could always happen, and probably we have all the time in the world. But these things should not be stopped. And I feel like, that these things should go ahead. And my contribution is, I come from that point of thing. And the others in my office also, I'm sure, they are being there because they feel like, this would help things to move forward. Maybe in the long run, you will be able to see the things. But right now, when you are standing from my point of perspective and see, I find this is the right thing which I can do.
We just have 1 more minute, so if it's a quick question. And then other questions, I appreciate there's a lot, but they can be written down or fast.
Yeah, guys, only 1 minute is left, okay? So Omar, make it extra short.
Here's a quick one.
Extra short. So lengthen it and shorten
Here's
it.
a quick question.
One quick comment is that all of these presentations will be on an online Google Doc. So all the drawings and this will be available to everyone. Second, I have a question about because you have mentioned many few consultants, and every time I hear few consultants, I get a little bit worried. So if there is understanding that there will be implementation drawing coming from one source, or there could be, for example, drawings coming from infrastructure implemented separately from drawings coming from planners.
How could that be? Like, you're an architect.
Yeah, exactly, but that's, things are happening in this way actually. So
how could you, I mean, do you have anything to substantiate? I don't think so it's happening.
So it will come
DDP,
from one source.
Yes, obviously that's why we have an external lead consultant. Like, you know, like you do any building, you work with a structural consultant, infrastructure consultant, and they work in collaboration with the architect, right? So the architect, like, works on it. So that's how it should work. How can you do a structural design without even the architect knowing it?
Okay, so infrastructure coming from the main DDP.
So they will be like, they have to work in collaboration with the lead consultant. And then, like, things has to evolve out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So basically, Vastu Shilpa will be pulling all the consultants giving one out.
Finally, we'll be having one draft DDP. Like I said, see, Vastu Shilpa consultants will be working on the DDP part of it, but there is also the legality part of it, like TCPO and other things, which we will be working on. And apart from that, it is also our duty to also provide the necessary information, whether it works of Roger, the urban design framework or whatever. I'm sure probably in a short term it might be very difficult for them to really understand it unless we provide them these documents. So as a client for them, it's our responsibility to give them all these things, and then it has to be done. Like I said, this is a much different from how we do it in the outside world. It has to be much more different in a very different collaborative way.
Okay, this is the end. Okay, we are going to switch. No more questions. I know there is a long list of questions. I am very sorry. We're trying to keep this moving. So Giulio is next. We're just gonna clip the mic on him and go for it. Yeah?
Yeah, so please use your sheets. We really urge you to, any questions, even if there's more than one, write them down, pass them to us, and we'll pass them to Sri Vatsa and then share the responses with all of you, okay? And apologies we can't speak to everybody for a long time, but we have a busy schedule. Okay, so I will introduce Giulio.
Thank you.
So Giulio has a lot of experience working as a geoarchaeologist in Europe and Asia. He holds a degree in geology from the University of Milan. Okay, he has a degree in geology from the University of Milan and a diploma in soil micromorphology from Ghent in Belgium. And in Auroville, he's founded CSR Geomatics and is currently mapping the Auroville topography and has been taking part in development of an integral water management plan for Auroville with the water group in Auroville.
Okay, Happy New Year to everybody. My name is Giulio, and Ellen gave you a bit of introduction about me. Before we go into the technical details, because I will be speaking about technical things, I want just to remind of a dimension of water which is usually forgotten. Water is what gives us life. We need to remember this. Without water, we cannot live. No organism on this planet can survive. So we need to be absolutely careful about it. A quick look at where we are. We are on a ridge. We need to remember the topography is absolutely crucial when we talk about water. We are on a ridge, and we are also on a coastal area. These two facts are absolutely important for anything related to water. Now, when we look at an image from the air, like this one, Google Earth, we have to look at the things which are on the ground with a certain, let's say, depth. Do you recognize any geometric pattern in this picture, which is other than the road and the buildings? I give you just a few seconds, and then I will give the answer, because I don't want you to know, I don't want to know from you. It will be difficult. Just a few seconds. What are these lines? These lines are lines of usually palmyra trees. Now, palmyra trees have been here planted for a very specific reason. For a very specific reason. They are planted on the plot boundaries. Now, the plot boundaries, they are marked by palmyra trees and by a bund. A bund which is made of earth, which has a very specific function to retain water when it rains from the sky, to have that water in that particular plot, to have that water, what is not used of that water, directly for agriculture purpose or whatever other purpose, to go in the underground, under our feet. And the legislation here, it says that whatever is in your plot is yours, even including the groundwater. Okay? We have to remember this thing. These are facts I'm talking about. So, we have a heritage here. This line of trees are not always recent. They follow a certain subdivision of the ground, of the land, which goes along with natural flows of water, with topography, and so on. Even this line is not a random line. We call it road, or whatever, but it's actually always used by nature in a different way. So now, let's follow that drop of rain which falls from the sky. It comes on that plot of land. We are talking about a very natural phenomenon. Luckily, in 2021, we had an exceptional year. Where is that going? What is under our feet? I'm a geologist, so I have done a bit of studies about this area. Now, it's very interesting to see the map, which is never coming other than small bits and tips in the presentation. This is where we are on. This is the nature we are on. We cannot do without it. Sorry, we cannot replace this. Not at all. She was also saying, oh, the farms, the village in this area. Why? There is a specific reason. Because clay is in this area. Clay is needed for agriculture. Clay is needed because it retains water. Here is sandstone, Cadro sandstone, this red soil, what's called sandstone, that absorbs water. It's not suitable for agriculture unless you have solutions. Now, you have Cadro sandstone, the yellow part, which is an aquifer. Aquifer means a geologic body which holds water and from which you can extract water. Okay. Now look at this. Cadro sandstone is here, but it's also here. And then we have some white things, which is the alluvium, what's called the alluvium. Well, when you see a map like this is the outcropping areas of each geological formation. So you can, sorry, I hope it's still working. When you go from one side to the other, you're actually walking on different geological formation. Now this one is the alluvium, is the last one, the most recent one, which has covered other formations. So you have to imagine that this body, this geological body, extends. Actually, this Cadro sandstone is born in Maracanã, let's say outcrops from Maracanã to Kanyakumari. So this gives you an idea how extended is this body. It will come into the perspective in a few minutes. And then we have the other bodies. Now, this is how it is when we walk on the surface. But when we go down, if we imagine to cut the planet in this area, and what do we see? This is what we see. We see a layered cake. we are lucky that our geology here is very, very simple, not as in the Himalaya region. It's just layers. Okay, now, out of these layers, we have one, which is the Caddo Sandstone aquifer, the first aquifer, what we call. Why is the first aquifer? Because Auroville is here, in this region. So for Auroville, this is the first aquifer. Then there is the second aquifer. For Auroville, the second, but for people living here, the first. And then there is the third aquifer. For us, it's the third. For them, it's the first. This is nature, okay? The setup of these things is very important because being an aquifer, it's basically a tank. Now, when we have to get a shower at home, we need to have water in the tank. If we don't have water in the tank, we cannot get a shower. So how do we fill the water? We pump the water. Nature doesn't pump the water. Nature rains the water, okay? So if you have an impervious surface like this one, Otay clay, which covers extensively, we are talking about more than 200 meters thickness, an aquifer like this, then the only recharge possibility for this one is very limited area. And this aquifer is actually the most exploited in the whole region. This aquifer went down 54 meters in 30 years. 54 meters, the level has gone down. Now, where is the water which is in the aquifer coming from? Many people think, oh, yeah, we have groundwater. That's not the source. The source is the sky. The source is the rain, not the ground. The ground is just a temporary storage. We need to understand this. Now let's look at this. Helen introduced, or Sophie introduced me. I'm working in CSR geomatics, so my job is to collect data. Let's look at this data. This is from Charlie Orogreen. He has collected rainfall data quite rigorously for the last 30 years and more. The numbers are not correct. From 1990 to 2021. Do you see a pattern? Do you see a regular pattern in this graph? No, there is no regular pattern. A regular pattern means that if there is a high, immediately after there is a low, and that pattern will repeat. Well, no. Rain is absolutely erratic. Period. You plan for anything, you are expecting this to happen next year, what we got last year, forget about it. It's not going to happen. How do you know? Let's take this example before 2021, where we got the record. The highest record was in 2015, and the next year was the lowest rainfall in the last 30 years. And if you take this to the next one, you see that there is not the same pattern happening. So we cannot absolutely predict rain. Fact, period. Okay? Now, let's look at what is happening. We monitor wells. Now I give you just few data. I explained this center field Michael Tate. This well is a deep well. The color, the yellow is the Caddo sandstone, and this is the Manaveli clay. The red line is the water level of the well. The blue lines are the weekly rainfalls. This is data we have put together. So you see, there is a kind of a rhythm, okay, which somehow follows the precipitation, and then you see the peak, which is the recent one. But there's something, we have to look at this graph in particular, and in the following. Here is also raining, no? But there is not so much of increase in the level. Here also is raining, but there is no increase. So what is happening? The capacity of the Caddo sandstone to receive water, to increase the water table, is limited to less than 20% of the rainfall. So less than 20% of the rainfall is actually reaching the water table. Where is the rest going? We'll come to that. Then I want to put your attention to a couple of more things. There is a trend here. Don't look at this. This is the last year. This is exceptional. This is not, but look at this. It's a trend. This is going down. And unfortunately, this is what we have seen in the whole region for years, going down. Fact. It's again a fact. Okay? Let's see another one. Revelation farm. This is a shallow well. Two different geological bodies. Again, the rain doesn't impact directly on it unless it's a very strong and abundant rain. The normal, enjoyable rain does not impact much. But you see the trend? Okay? You have just a spike here. But this trend is alarming because that tells us that the recharge in normal scenario is not happening. It's not compensating for what we are extracting. Who is we? We'll come to that. Daima. This is more on the eastern part. Again, it's a shallow well. This is only Cadolo sandstone, first aquifer, this one. Okay? Look, again, it's going down. But they also get the rain still going down. Then, fertile. This is the well which has gone most dramatically down. This went from this to this level in 3 years. Okay, dramatic. We are talking, and you barely see any recharge. This is all mode, deep well. Here, different aquifers. Here we are deep. This is the second aquifer. Where's the first? The first. There's no water in the first. Zero. The water is only in the second and lower. So water is deep. Yeah, but it's a deep well, so from up the water falls down. True. Okay, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something else. See this huge variation which we didn't see before in the other graph, right? Return. This is even more dramatic. Look at the variation. It's amazing. What is this? What I'm talking about? This is the wells which we are monitoring. Something is happening. And what is happening? Somebody is pumping out water dramatically, massively, in a way, at a rhythm, at a pace which it cannot even be compensated by nature. This is called, a simple word, over-exploitation. Even the Tamil Nadu government published the status of the things here, and more than 95% of the wells are overexploited. So, this is what we are in. This picture comes from Gilles Bouricot. But it summarizes very well the status of the affair here. This is the source, rain, okay? This is where we are. This is where Auroville is. Auroville in its history has done something which was not parallelly done in the region. Auroville has increased the percolation into the ground to recharge the water ground, the groundwater, and that has been done through afforestation and bunding, while in the surrounding region that parallelly did not happen. Actually, the bunding, not to mention the forest, the bunding has been disrupted. So, we have in Auroville an attempt of recharge with a limited extraction, and still we don't know how much we extract because we Aurovillians are not in agreement of having meters installed for our places, which is a problem. But outside, the extraction is so massive, which absolutely cannot be compensated by the recharge. And on top of this, we have also, we are in a coastal area, so we have an ocean just nearby, and that ocean is pushing. Why is pushing? Because we are taking out from the ground the water, so it has a better way to come in. Question is, can we go on like this? No. What is this? This is that tank I was mentioning about. This is the tank where the water is stored. Now imagine you have your tank of water, which you fill up. And then you have your tap for your shower. But with the same tank, you have 10,000 more taps on which you have no control. How do I come with this number? In 2006, there was a survey done by Harvest. Just around Auroville, there were 5,900 and more wells. Just around Auroville in 2006, 15 years ago. So we are sharing an aquifer or more than one. And I showed it to you that the aquifers are quite extended. They are in big regions, so there are a lot of people depending on it. Can we control this? Forget about it. No. Can we go on like this? You give me the answer. I say no. So is there anything we have to change? Yes. We need to, again, follow that drop of water which falls from the sky. We have to do that. We like it or not, that's what we have to do, because without water we cannot live. So, sorry, I'm going back. What does it mean, over-extraction? You know, yeah, they're pumping more, but I have my quota, I have my water, I have my well. That's true. But where is water underground? Where is it stored? This is sandstone. It's made of sands or grains of sand. You cannot put water inside a grain of sand. You cannot, sorry. So where is water stored? Water is stored in the voids between the grains. Now water, we come from different school, but I think anywhere is taught that water is incompressible, isn't it? You cannot compress water. Sorry, you cannot do it. Well, when you have a body, a geological body, let's take this Cadelo sandstone for 30 meters like we have in Matrimandir, 30 meters of sandstone. Each cubic meter is about 3.5 tons. You put it on a line, on a column, large 1 meter, for 30 meters, and then you do a rough calculation. What is the pressure exerted on the bottom, 30 meters, okay? How is it that the Cadelo sandstone is not collapsing under this enormous pressure? Because there is water. Water will hold the ground. Simple, as simple as that. Now take it out. Take it out. What will happen? There's no water anymore in the pores. Air will go. Air is compressible. We use compressors to compress air to fill up our tires. That is what happens. We go from a situation where there is space to host and lodge water to a situation where there's no more space anymore. So this is called a phenomenon called subsidence or subsidence, depending how you want to pronounce it. This is what happens, example, in South America. Is this happening in Auroville? Yes, my house is under subsidence. It's just moving like this, okay? Is this happening somewhere else in the world? Please have a look at the numbers. California, 60 centimeter per annum. 10 years means 6 meters of subsidence. Can you imagine? Now, Tokyo realized in 1968 that it was going down, it was drowning. So Tokyo said, wait a second guys, not possible. Close water, reduce consumption. What happened? After 2000, the subsidence went down to 1 centimeter. It's still happening, but massive improvement. What will happen if we don't think about this? Oh, very simple. You build a road, you build infrastructure, you build building, you build whatever you want, you build water channels, whatever you want. It will go down. Because water is not there anymore. You build pipelines, you build water channel to bring water from here to there by gravity. Yeah, but now the channel is becoming like this, sorry. It's becoming like this. It doesn't go from here to there anymore, it comes here. Is this what we want? I don't think so. So I think it's time we wake up and we start thinking of this phenomenon. And it's not only permanent. Subsidence cannot be reversed, forget about it. It's not happening. But the capacity of the aquifer to hold water will be reduced forever. So today you have beautiful, yeah, your neighbor is pumping, whatever. I don't care, have my well. Better you care, because soon you will not have anything at all. That is where we are. You like it? No. And then, of course, the problem of the saltwater intrusion. Coastal area, very common problem all around the world, along all the coastal areas. South of Pondicherry, the ocean is already 15 kilometers in. Here we have the ocean in Repo. Luckily we didn't get the ocean under Auroville yet. Vinyl sandstone, what I showed you earlier, is a very big candidate for the ocean to come in. If that comes in, then we will have serious problems. There is a very interesting article I read just a few days ago. Everybody thinks about climate change and the rise of the sea level. Oh, communities are getting flooded by the sea and so on. Nobody is actually speaking of what is already happening in California and Florida. They are already flooded by the ocean from the ground. When the ocean comes, pushes up the groundwater level is increasing, and no infrastructure, no sewage line, no pipeline, nothing is working because everything is flooded underground. They are drowning in their own waste. And they have put together the data of the variation of the groundwater levels with the tide levels, and it matches. Okay? There's something I want to do for a model zone to see if we have this problem. Started already. You know the petrels are flooded, right? You know that the petrels in Marginal have been flooded this year. They have been flooded because the groundwater came up. Not thinking about this scenario, sorry, we are in this scenario. The petrels have been flooded. Let's go back to this. This is where we start. And this is where we have to go back, sorry. This is where we are. Look at this map. We have on this map something absolutely amazing. It's in blue color. In Tamil, it's called Yeris system. Yeris are what the local culture built together with the push from the kings to have a possibility of agriculture, survival, in a very harsh climate, in very difficult conditions, in a way that is a marvel of engineering. All these water bodies are interconnected, and you can see the streams and canals, and they are different levels. They don't need pumps. At that time they didn't have pumps, they just were using the gravity. And then they all end up here in Kalivelli. Today Kalivelli is also gone, unfortunately. It was a brackish water body, and today is almost entirely saline. Let's have a better look at this situation. How many water bodies, how many, all interconnected, how rich is this land? How beautiful is it to have a possibility to integrate water, which is a life-giving gift, into our activities, into our human activities. 1,200 years ago. In Tamil Nadu, there are more than 45,000. In Chennai, there were 186. Today, there are only 26. Can we just learn from the local culture? Can we learn from the expertise? Can we learn from those who have lived and survived and prospered in this area? Can we switch from that idea of the ground and the underground to something else, to something visible, to something we can play with? Can we start thinking like that? That is what we engaged with. When I say we started with CSR and Water Group. We said, let's dream. How do you start going into that direction? I said at the beginning, you need topography. You need topography, you need topographic data. Do we have? No. They are there, but they are not accurate, sorry. So we have to build it. We are building it. Okay? Where are we today? We are, yes, it takes long, huh? It takes very long. We did the yellow area is what we have already surveyed. And it takes long. And surveying is a long procedure. So why are we doing? Because if we don't know by gravity where the water will go, how can we even think about it? And then we collect the data about the information, the rainfall, the weather parameters and so on. And where are the Auroville rain gauges? And then you observe, this was October 2019, it was pouring. I went out, I took these photos, and then you see rain falls everywhere. Okay, it falls also on the unpaved surface. Does it make sense to think at collecting the water from unpaved? I don't know. We have to check, we have to measure, we have to test. So we did that. Why? Because unpaved is large areas, right? And we have also data about infiltration. And then we build a model. And when we calculated, and then we have the numbers, how much rain we can collect. And this was 20th November, in 1 hour. 107.7 millimeters. This is the data collected. In 1 hour. This is insane. This is not normal. This is one of the effects of the climate change. Climate change doesn't change the pattern of rains, that I told you, but what is actually changing is the intensity. Intensity is the quantity of rain falling in the unit of time. This is increasing. Increasing intensity means there is more volume of water falling in the same amount of time on the same area, and that area is not able to absorb it anymore. So then what is the consequence of that? You have something which in Auroville was put as a policy, zero runoff. Yes, it's runoff what we are generating. And that runoff today, where is it going? It's going to the sea. Can't we do something? This is water. This is what we need. Can't we do this? Can't we just take this as the ancestors did? And then, of course, there are technological devices like recycling of water and so on, but that's also another source of water which we have today. So we are using, while washing our hands, that water. It's still water, dirt, it stinks, still water. You can use, not for drinking, for other things. So this is RZ STP, and this is the storage place in the Mahalakshmi Park. If you want, there is a video to explain how it's built and blah, blah. Now, this is what we are coming to. The zero runoff policy is still valid, but we add to the ocean. The runoff is today what is important, because the runoff will allow the rainwater, the storm water, to go where we decide to go. We can decide where it goes, if we plan for it. Otherwise, it will go to the ocean. And then, of course, treated wastewater and groundwater. This is the integration of sources. Are we ready for this challenge? Are we ready? No, then it's only a matter of time, and then we have to pack and go. matter over. So, my suggestions. Intensity is growing, more rain is falling in the same interval of time. Higher intensity, of course, will lead to a lower capacity of the soil to absorb rainfall. Larger volumes of runoff tends to get generated. The combination of larger intensity with larger portions of land covered with impervious surface, because we are building a city. So these two things have to be put into account. So this will create large volumes of runoff. Can we finally put together a rainwater harvesting system which is mandatory in Tamil Nadu since 2006? Can we? Gutters, all means to drive the harvested water into reservoirs or water bodies, whatever you want to call it, to be used for not for drinking, but for other non-domestic purpose. We all have beautiful gardens. Why do we have to give the best water we have to gardens? Gardens will be happy to use this water or treated wastewater. But we have to plan for it. If that is not planned, that will not happen. And this is exactly what we are in. So it has to be in the building design. You're architects. I'm talking to you guys, huh? I'm not an architect. I'm not doing the design. Sorry, I'm telling you what you should do. Double pipeline. Yes, I'm sorry. This is an emergency. There's no time to wait anymore. Take it or leave it. Leave it in the sense you have to go. Double pipeline for harvested rainwater for some domestic usage. Toilet flushing. This is not theory anymore. We have to do it. Period. Matter over. Oh, it's more expensive. Water will cost more than diamonds. And we will still buy it because we need it. So let's think about it. Okay, we will have public toilets, yeah, because there will be used of this and that. We can use that water for them. But we need drains. We need drains. Where are the drains in Auroville? And the drains should go where? Where it makes sense, where the nature's bringing it. Not, oh, pumps this, there, wait a second, it's much more easy. They did 1,200 years ago, why can't we do it? Irrigation, whatever. But then, we all come from schools and this and that. We all experts, we all do, yeah, can't we just do it intelligently? Why do we have to have a drain which is, can't we have play? Can't we have a waterfall that will act as a check dam, which lowers the speed of water, facilitate infiltration of the excess of water, because my aim is not the percolation, my aim is to collect the runoff. And then maybe the excess runoff to be given downstream to our neighbors. We don't want to capture everything. Our neighbors will say, hey guys, we need water here. Fair enough. Why can't we think like that? So, beauty, life, crown width. Only a functionality. I heard about all these things. Are we ready to do it? It's your time now. Huh? There's no time to delay anymore, any further. Whatever. Yeah, we also need to remember that there will be wastewater somehow, because we go to toilets, we wash our hands and blah, blah, blah. That is still water. We need to do it. We need to do it. We cannot postpone it, period. This is where you can download all the data we are collecting. There is only one data you cannot download, and that is the land records, because the foundation asked us not to share. There was a request from Norway earlier. If you ask me, I'm sorry. There is a committee who will evaluate your request, and then, if the committee approves it, why is that? Because there have been leakage of information from anywhere in the town hall, and not only in the town. So the foundation was very clear, we are storing this information and we are not disclosing this information, period. Despite what people say, period. Thank you. Your questions?
Okay. Thank you very much. we have about 20 minutes for questions, so if David can see who wants.
Mano's first.
Thank you, Giulio, for that very insightful and impactful presentation. I have just an observation from the experience at Sacred Groves. We completed 460,000 liters of rainwater storage with the first houses. But with the rains, I notice an interesting fact that there's more storage in an accidental storage on the site where we dug out the earth for the construction for the houses. There's more than 600,000 liters, I think, is a guess. But out there, so question to you is, can we have a soil harvesting strategy for Auroville? Because a lot of us rely on earth for construction. And which areas of Auroville can we dig? Because our ancestors had a system of always digging in the right space to collect, to make the areas, and from there you use the earth for construction of various kinds. So can we have a strategy for harvesting soil which relates to water? The second aspect of that question is, with the design of the crown, how can we integrate soil restructuring and harvesting? And can there be a strategy that you can help with for us?
Strategy.
Where to dig, how to...
Where to dig will come out of the analysis of the topography. Because if we plan to start pumping for water, to let water go where we want, forget, that's not possible. It doesn't make any sense on the economic point of view, maintenance point of view, blah, blah, blah. And can we be a beacon for others like that? No, that's not what we want. We would like to have a system which can be easily replicated if people want somewhere else. And that is with the local condition here. Pumping, it should be restricted to when you really need to go against gravity. So, analysis of the terrain, topography, that would give you the idea where to identify a plot of land which might receive runoff from several places. And in that situation, if you start thinking like that, you bless the runoff, right? Reducing the soil. I would say that goes together with the plan, the development plan, according to what is thought, what is planned, because you might need to raise certain things for whatever purpose, I don't know. Water, I would limit the impact to the minimum possible, because water naturally goes from here to here. Just you need to follow that simple route. Then there are regulations about transporting the soil and blah, blah, blah. Those have to be followed. But you guys, you are going to do the DDP, so you have to think about this strategy. I'm sorry, I will keep telling you, please consider the rain to go from here to there, period. The rest is up to you. I'm not going into that, sorry.
You're the geologist.
That's a different story. The geology, you see, is very marginal. It's very marginal. This is surface water management, or better to say, complete water management. Because yes, you have to take into account what is under your feet, correct? But as our backup, as our drinking possibility, not for our gardens, not for constructions, not for other non-domestic purpose. Sorry, it's a waste, and we should not throw our resources like that. Next.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you, Giulio, for making it so clear to us how important it is to look at the larger picture. Water cannot be regenerated by looking at a micro area. And for this reason, we need to have an environmental concept first before we start building the roads and the urban structure, infrastructure. So thank you very much for making that so clear. And my dream would be that we as a model city or a city utopia even would take the trouble of making a model water regeneration concept for the bioregion, because so much work has already been done through the Water for All project, through so many researchers which came from Auroville. And do you see a chance that we really start working with our neighbors with a larger bioregion to implement this?
I love this question because we are talking about, again, I go back to the beginning. What is water? Water is a life-giving gift. That is how I define water. Okay. So, if it is just merely a technical thing, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. It's a commodity. No, it's not a commodity. Oh, our problem is to distribute water. No, that is not our problem. That is the beauty of working with water, because you have abundance. You have not scarcity, right? Like we have right now. And we are not an island. We live together with our neighbors. They are wasting water. How can you think that? Still, I'm in Auroville. These are human beings like me. Let's work together. But we don't have any authority to go there and tell them, you do this. If I were living in this village and somebody comes to me, oh, you should do this, I say, who are you? What do you want? Bella cara, you come from you don't know anything about us. They are right. How to do that? Challenge. How can we go to them if we are not good ourselves? First you clean your house. First you do that. And then you invite them. You have something which is working. You invite them. Let them come. And then you say, it's working. Are you interested? Yes. You want me to help? Yes. Then let's do it together. But there is no other way, sorry. No other way. It doesn't work. Other way. I have gone around some years speaking to farmers and villagers and so on. They have this experience of the government will do it, so they back. Or NGO, wow, no, NGO, no. Why? Because NGO pass and go. This is active participation. But how can we go to them if we are not good ourselves? If we are not, hey, I spoke about something, we have nothing in place like that. Yeah, a few examples of rainwater harvesting, but they are not even connected or interconnected. We have luminosity, we have a town hall, we have so many systems. Wastewater treatment system, only in the city we have 69. Are we reusing that water? Are we connecting one to the other? Are we using? Is the possibility there to do it? Yes. The recent development of the residential zone. Wastewater going one way, treated wastewater coming back, given back to the communities. They are using, go and visit Kalpana. It's not a garden anymore, it's a jungle. Why? Because there are trees and plants, they adore this water. They just like it. Am I saying we need to drink it? No. Can't we plan for it? To plan for it, we need to know how much water we need. Meters, we need to measure what we need, what we are using. We need to do that. Will increase our awareness. We need to know how much water is used for gardens. And then if my garden uses 3 cubic meters per day, I have to find those 3 cubic meters of water per day somewhere, which is not from a well. Sorry, no. That's the common pot. No. Are we ready for it? I think we are ready. We're just lazy. So if we are an example, we can go and invite them and help and support them in doing it if we are good in doing it. Otherwise, better not. Yes.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes left.
I have just the idea that our neighbors are much more future-oriented than we are in Auroville. That's my impression right now. And please go on to make it clear to us how important it is to change.
So just my question mainly for the DreamWeaving team.
Please.
Because the Crown, as I have seen, passed through few canyons. So the question is, how do you think they should deal with these natural systems? Some of them even, I think, fall in the industrial zone, even intersecting with lines of forces. And then what are the ramifications, if we just block them? What would be the
Don't even think about that.
Yeah.
Don't even think about blocking canyons.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm trying to make you help them. Yeah.
No, I understand the thing. No, but that's the very easy solution. And then what? You can see, I live in Ami. The private development, when you turn the tar road from Certitude, and then you go to Kulapalam, there's this 90 degrees bend, left-hand side, private development, the canyon starts there. You go there, they close the canyon. So they will be flooded. Don't do that. But think, very good question. What is a canyon? A canyon is nothing else than an area where water accumulates and erodes. The canyon is just a deep thing, an incision where erosion is happening. Erosion is never good. Never. The more the erosion, the more the damage. The first slide, we are on a ridge. From this ridge, there are 3 major watersheds generated on this ridge. Here, whatever we do here, it will reflect 2 tens of kilometers around. We like it or not, that's the fact, period. Do we want to do something? Yes, we want to do something. Canyons, they are nothing else than things where water runoff comes due to gravity, topography, blah, 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 and acquires speed. Because of speed, its capacity of eroding is augmented, and it goes on, because the canyon aim, the water aim, to reach the ocean level. That is the aim. So it will go on digging till it reaches the ocean level. That's the nature. So how to deal with that? They had this problem also 100 years ago. No? So they broke that flow. How? They convinced the water to remain in a certain place, inviting water to stay in that place and say, my dear water, I made a place for you. If you have friends with you, you can accommodate in the next one. Okay. What is the beauty of it? Not only the rainwater harvesting thing, which gives water for all the birds, but there is a flood prevention operation there. Because you are storing water and then you are taking out of that possible flow, which comes at high speed, with the only intention of eroding. So you are storing it. You are telling the water, this is nice, stay here. And water will stay here. But you have to design it properly. You have to design it simply, as simple as possible. How to incorporate the design. And guys, you are architects. This is your challenge. You want to make a building on top of a canyon? Do it. Do it. But don't block the canyon. Is that beautiful and so on? It's not up to me. That's not my thing. I'm just saying, don't touch the natural flow of water. If you touch it, make it so in such a way that water will go there naturally, will not break somewhere else. Because that is what water does. And it's always done. I always say, in floodplains, river likes to dance. They move from one place to the other. And you can see, just go Google Earth, see, go along the Ugly River, you will see all the abandoned meanders and so on. Why? Because water you cannot stop. It jumps from here to there according to the conditions which are created for it. Chennai 2015, the airport flooded. Why? Because somebody did not think about it. Do we want to do that? No. How to do that? Guys, let's sit together and talk. Let's see. But I'm not a designer. You tell me, this is the strategy. I tell you, this is the strategy. I can tell you, oh, if you do this, this might happen. But the rest, sorry, I'm not a designer. I'm not an architect. That's your job. Hope this helps.
Okay, we have 5 minutes, so maybe one more question.
May I know your name, please?
Hi, it's Raj here. Probably a dumb question. We know that tree plays a major role in sending the rainwater downstream. Does it feed
Not
the
downstream, sorry.
Sorry, beneath our feet.
Yes.
Does it feed the aquifer? And if it does, and how do they do that? You know, just yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Imagine this soil, okay? This one is made exactly like in that picture, with voids. Voids is what accommodates water, nothing else. What happens with a tree? Tree has roots. Those roots, depending on the tree species, go laterally or down or mix, and they create galleries. The galleries are the empty areas which are created by the roots of trees, and along which there is a microfauna and microorganisms living, which enhance the area and the volume of the gallery. Okay? If you don't have that, you will have the natural porosity of the sediment. Let's take a granite. What is the natural porosity of granite? 0. Okay? But granite here, for instance, in this region, is considered an aquifer. How can it be? Because the first 100 meters is weathered. What does it mean, weathered? It has been altered and modified by the trees and organisms and blah, 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 which have gone through millions and billions of years through it, because this is not a seismic area. So it didn't break because of earthquakes. It broke just because of nature. But nature and roots and so on, they reach up to a certain level. They don't go down 30, 40 meters unless we talk about very particular species and so on. There are other mechanisms which are in place. One of these mechanisms is called Peptogenesis. The Peptogenesis is the soil formation. The soil formation is happening always from top down because it goes with gravity and it goes with water. So water moves. And then you have leaching of elements. In certain cases, those elements accumulate and form crust and layers hard, like laterite, like nodules, like calcium carbonate crusts and so on. In other cases, go on along the voids and make those voids covered with very thin layers of clay, which make those voids impervious, so water will move even better. That's the, Then there are other movements which are capillarity and so on. This is always in dynamic form. Trees help that, definitely yes, as all living organisms do, because they dig. That's the mechanism, basically. I hope this answers the question.
One more question, it would be Dula.
I just have a comment.
2 minutes.
I think we have a very short lunch break today, just over an hour.
Okay, so what Ellen is saying is that basically we have a very short lunch break, less than like.
She has a short question.
I'm not sure I can believe short questions anymore. Okay.
Basically, yes and no. Okay. It's in relation to the difficult word of the ground sinking. So, in relation to that, what is...
Sorry, I missed it.
Sorry.
What? In relation to?
Subsidence.
Subsidence, okay. Thank you.
In relation to that, what would be in sort of a timeline which you would think it might impact Auroville? And that in relation to laying of infrastructure, does it make sense to wait until you actually need the infrastructure to lay it? Or that's kind of the thing, because if we plan it all now, we lay it all now, and it all breaks, then it's a waste of money.
No, the infrastructure in this sense, in this case, doesn't really matter much. What is the problem? The subsidence is already happening. It's already there. We don't know what is the rate, because there is no monitoring. Nobody's monitoring, so we don't know. So I know my house, that I know. I had to redo the roof last year, because it all went like that. It can be very fast. You have seen the numbers. Or it can be slower. I don't know. And it can be different in different parts of the world because the underground is different. Infrastructure laying, no, I had a very big concern, not about infrastructure, but the lake proposed to be done in Matmande. That amount of water in one place is dangerous. Yes, because given the scenario, adding a load on an aquifer, which is already, you have seen, it's already fragile. In many wells, the first aquifer is empty. Well, it's not the wise thing to do, because it will go down. And if a lake goes down, no. So, let's use this again, and let's just go with the water nicely. Finish?
Yeah, we're over now, so we expect to start again at 2 p.m. So if you can try to, don't eat too fast, but like, yeah, please try to be on time. That would be nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.